welcome to the show. We're excited to be here to talk today about our trip to South Africa. I think we'll start out by introducing ourselves and what we do here, or what we used to do here. I'm Jennifer Kalfsbeck-Getz. I was a dean at Moorpark College for a little over 4 years, and I'm currently the interim vice president of academic affairs at Ventura College.
And I'm Vance Manicus. I've had the opportunity to be at Moorpark College for about 38 years. I've been the athletic trainer for the majority of those years, as well as a health and kinesiology instructor. And presently, I'm the athletic director.
Hi, and I'm Sharon Manicus, and I'm the coordinator of Student Health Center, and I've been fortunate to be here serving students for 28 years.
So we had a great opportunity this last summer. We each were able to go to South Africa, and since we all sort of had a trip planned, we decided to do it together. So it sounds kind of risky, but 5 colleagues at Moorpark College trekked out across the globe in almost 24 hours on flights and decided to see that space and that part of the world together. I think it might be fun to talk about how we all decided to go there. I can start since I think I was the first one of our group, or one of the first to win. I like to call it winning the trip. My husband requires me to use the air quotes because, well, I'll explain. So we were at Moorpark College's 50th anniversary celebration, and there was an auction. And at that auction, this Africa trip was one of the options. And of course, my eyes lit up. It's a place that I'd always wanted to go to, wanted to do a safari, wanted to swim with sharks, and wanted to see South Africa. Didn't expect to be bidding on it, and the next thing I knew, when it came up, my husband's paddle went up for me, and the next thing you know, I am bidding with one of my colleagues who's already done one of these shows. We're bidding against each other until we realized we needed to stop, and I won that trip. He was able to purchase it at the same price too, and the adventure started from there. We knew we were going to South Africa and started planning 18 months before that trip actually took off.
And for myself, the way I got associated with this trip is I found out that my wife wanted to go on this trip. And having no idea, at the 50th anniversary of the college, where Jennifer purchased or won the trip,
Thank you.
I found out that my wife really wanted the same trip. So the good husband that I am, I bid on it. Well, maybe not. Anyway, so the same trip became available at the Edom fundraiser, and because the proceeds for this particular venture, it goes to the Edom program, somebody else bid on it and won, and I'll let them tell you why they did that. It wasn't me that bid on it and won, I'm the plus one, and so I was the plus one for this particular adventure.
So at the 50th gala, we didn't want to get into the bidding war, so we decided not to do that, but at Edom. And I was the one who bid on that trip, and he decided he'd go along with it. And it's awesome to be able to go to Edom and support and the animals that are there. So it was a wonderful opportunity to see animals in their natural habitat. And so the price was right. We were the only bid, so that made it even better for us. So.
Yes, you won it at a better price
We
than
really
we did,
won it.
which I have not stopped hearing about that from my husband, who also went with, who teaches here at Moorpark. You knew that, right?
I knew that. We were not going to tell him the difference in the price, but
Came out after a bottle of Fat Bastard red wine in South Africa.
And South Africa.
they have some very nice
true.
red wines in South Africa.
They do. So I think the next thing we were going to do is talk about sort of our favorite thing, because whenever we meet people, they say, what was your one favorite thing, because they know they don't want to hear the whole story. What was your one most favorite thing about South Africa? And then I think we're going to talk through, we've got some great pictures from our trip, and we're going to talk through the trip sort of chronologically, because also a lot of people will say, yeah, I've always wanted to go, or I'd like to go. And so we're going to kind of walk you through how we managed to see most of that country and tell you a little bit about what we learned when we did that. Who wants to go first on your favorite thing about South Africa, if it's just one thing?
Okay, and that's a really hard thing to do, because I think for me, I loved every part of this trip. And we had this awesome travel guide who put this trip together with everything. And luckily, she had people going who said yes to everything and every experience. So we were able to diversify it a little bit. I think probably the funnest thing and scariest part for me was when we did our diving with the sharks. And it wasn't the shark I was afraid of, it was how cold the water was going to be. And, but it was so awesome because we did get to see a great white and experience that and see what that was. And I do have to throw in, the animals are just beautiful and gorgeous. And I think the other thing I want to talk just a little bit about the book, because I hadn't read the book before we had gone. So it was great to read it afterwards and look at what we experienced and how that reflected in the eyes of the book. And so we'll get to that going in too. But so probably diving with the sharks.
Well, for me, it was all about the animals. I really enjoy animals. I enjoy outdoors. I enjoy hiking, fishing, and those type of activities. So for me, it was really going out on the safaris and looking for and trying to find the animals. And it was, you know, you think you're going to see some of the pictures that of the animals that we had seen, but a lot of it was finding them where they're at when no one else can find them. And
This one can always
Yes.
find them.
we got fortunate to be able to spot some of them. So for me, it was really truly the animal experience to see what they live like in their natural environment, and see a skinny cheetah, then see well, it looks like it's pregnant cheetah, but it just had eaten lunch, and realizing what his lunch was, and you know, realizing the fact that there's one less gazelle that's walking around, but that's part of the process. I just really enjoyed the animals, but as Sharon mentioned, Jennifer planned a trip that was fantastic. I mean, we did it all. You're going to see about hiking Table Mountain, and you see us diving with the sharks, and being fortunate to really encounter a great white. So whenever you go to an excursion like this, you're not guaranteed to see lions. Do we see lions?
Yes,
We did.
You're not guaranteed rhinoceroses. Do we see rhinoceroses?
we did.
We
Hippos.
did.
We saw everything, experienced everything. So our trip planner did a fantastic job, and we were really able to experience South Africa to the utmost. And I would probably take that same trip again with my grandkids.
Well, this was really a dream trip for me. It was probably in my top 2 or 3 places that I wanted to go. And so when we were planning it, I did start mapping out, well, here's a good idea for this day. And we have an Excel spreadsheet that mapped out every day, even which days we needed to set aside time for work. Which I don't know if you guys took us up on those times, but we made sure we had everything mapped out, including driving, and we did everything. We drove much of the country, driving on the other side of the road, which was new for our group. And we, of course, flew. We took a ferry to something, but for me, it was just mapping out what I thought would be fun. Then I thought I'll share the spreadsheet with the group, and they'll say which things they want to do, which things they don't. There might be some days where they go do one thing, we do another, no big deal. And I send it off, and the response is, we're in, let's do it all. And it was like Christmas for me, because I got to have my dream trip, planned everything that we wanted to do, and it really went from there. So every element of it for me obviously was fun, because it was Jennifer's trip. But for me, whenever I answer that question and people say, what was your favorite part? It's always that feeling of being in the space of the animals versus, when you go to zoos, and I enjoy lots of different zoos and enjoy seeing the animals, but we're actually in their space in South Africa. And what I really appreciated that we learned from our various guides is the enormous amount of education and conservation work that goes into just their culture as a whole. And so we learn what we can do, what we can't do, how to move, even within the Jeep, everything about being there. And you realize that when you're there and you're in a Jeep, it's open, which I was surprised that the sides were always open. I mean, I thought maybe when it's lions, they're not, but they are. And basically what you realize is the animals just think the Jeep with those noises inside of it, which are us, they just think that's another animal. And so they walk up to it, they walk past it. Once a rhinoceros's butt bumped one of the wheel wells just because it was a little too close. We're in their space and we're just another one of them. Same thing with the sharks. They just kind of went past us and looked at us. I thought it was interesting that the copper sharks just kind of went by, but with the great white, when it walked past, they have little sardines in the cage. The great white actually gets eye contact as it goes past each one. I'm like, kind of creepy, cool, but it was just to be in their space rather than putting them, you know, in enclosures and going to a space that's not, where we're not immersed, really was what blew me away. So should we talk about sort of the trip and where we started and how we cruised around? And I think we've got
Sure.
pictures that sort of follow in that pattern
Right.
too.
And the first one, South Africa is beautiful.
Oh.
It is a beautiful country. There's a lot of poverty in areas, and there's the richness of other areas, and you'll see as we go through. But we're gonna start you off.
What's nice about South Africa, which I didn't realize, it's California. And what I mean by that, we had the beach, we had the mountains. Of course, we weren't there in the wintertime. We had the mountains. We had trees. We had the desert area. We had the tundra area, if you will. I mean, it was we were driving and we're going, well, this looks like we're in the Central Coast right here.
Exactly.
You know, we're in wine country.
Yeah.
It's just California at a different location.
But very pretty. So this was, we decided, we got there, we had a little problems with our first excursion.
And we got to Johannesburg. That
Yeah,
was our
when we
first
got
stop.
to Johannesburg, that was our first stop, and we had a little bit trouble with our excursion, so we decided to hop on the bus that was just going around town, and it took us to the Apartheid Museum. And these are some of the places that we just drove by to give you a little flavor of what
A
the,
little more flavor is we arrived late in the evening.
oh,
And we Ubered. You're going to realize that when you're in a city, one of the easiest, most safest ways to get around is through Uber.
because, and you wouldn't want to take taxi because they're not regulated.
Right.
So that's why you would go on an Uber, use Uber while you're there.
And so our first Uber ride was from the airport to our hotel, and we wanted to kind of stay downtown to immerse ourselves in the
It's true.
culture. And so we're late at night and we're driving, and all of a sudden our Uber driver is going very, very slow. Like, is he in the right area? And we're seeing people with little fires on the side of the road for heat. And I was
In the city.
in the city,
In the city.
in the city. And that kind of surprised us. So you're, I'm gonna say 12 o'clock at night, and it's all dark out, and you see, 3 guys standing by a little fire, and then you go down the road a little bit, and they're standing by another little fire right in front of a building. And again, something that we in Southern California are really not used to. So that was kind of like, for me, it was like, wait a minute, what are we
Right.
getting into?
Right.
When that Uber was driving, I kept waiting to see the cityscape because Johannesburg is the largest major city in Africa. So I was looking still for sort of a traditional cityscape, and that was never the case for either of the major cities that we went to, but that just was not what we encountered. There were tall buildings, but it was not the lit cityscape that we had envisioned and pictured.
Right. Safety was an issue there. We come outside our hotel, they would really only direct you to walk a certain blocks of that. Otherwise, they would have a driver from the hotel that would take you. And that
Yep.
was part of that. So we were on our way to the Apartheid Museum, and those are some of the shops that they had along the way there.
And locals call it Joburg, by
local-
the way, so
called
we do now
Joburg.
too.
Right. So there were some signs that talked about just democracy and different things that Nelson Mandela stood for. And at the Apartheid was this saying by Nelson Mandela, "To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others." And that sort of sums up what that whole place was about. The entrance into it, you could go 2 different ways. One, you could go as a white person. The other, you could go in as a black person into the museum. And your experiences would be different depending on which way you chose to
For the
go
entrance,
in.
yeah.
For the entrance only.
And the Nelson Mandela Museum is a must-see in Johannesburg. In my opinion, to go to a country and not experience the flavor of the country, good and or bad, we need to do that. You need to do that. And the Mandela Museum was just really, it was a highlight for me of Johannesburg. And we had some great food. We had some nice walking around, and we'll talk about some little things that we had seen. But if you ever go to Johannesburg, you need to take the opportunity, you
Yeah.
need to take the time to go to this museum. Now, if you do that, don't just plan on being there for 1 hour or two.
No.
Okay, it's to really immerse, to really truly understand. Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah, I think we each learned things that we didn't know historically, and they show you video in the, I think it was late 60s, early 70s of Mandela, and when he was more of his demeanor was more militant about social justice, and everyone sort of expected him to come out of prison when he did come out of prison with that same demeanor. And so they walk you through sort of seeing his transformation and then seeing the message that he had when he came out, which was the exact opposite of that. And it was one of, no, don't rise up now. We have to do the exact opposite. And wherever we went when we encountered people that talked about history, they talked about that critical message that he had that was, no, we're not going to now fight against and do what had been done to us. We're going to use love and peace. And his demeanor even was completely different. You could recognize it was the same man, but he describes as you go through the museum how that, you know, he had to decide who he wanted to be, and he wanted to focus on peace and love. And any of us who imagine being imprisoned for that many years, I think most of us can't imagine that would be our end result. The beauty also of the Apartheid Museum is it set the stage for our end of our trip when we were able to go to Robbins Island and tour the prison, which we'll talk about also in a few minutes.
Okay. So that's 4 of us coming out of that museum and just, you know, starting our trip.
And then for the animals, as soon as we were done with Johannesburg, we went off to Kruger National Park, which
Now, if I may,
Yes.
we took the side road,
we didn't mean to.
but we did.
You can use Google Maps there, which is awesome. So we used all of our usual devices, and I was navigator. We had a big van for the 5 of
Yeah.
us and all of our luggage. And my Google map was still set on no toll roads, which was not the plan when you go there, except the toll roads. They're not that expensive. So I couldn't figure out why we weren't getting on the major highway. And then all of a sudden, after 2 hours, we're like, why do we keep taking these weird little side roads? I'm like, I know I don't like to get stuck on that toll road on the way to San Diego where I don't have a pass and they send me some bill. So I clicked the button and we managed to
But
get
what
back.
was nice about that is we did experience some small towns.
We did.
A lot of roundabouts that
On the other side of the
road that we weren't sure about, and really seeing some really, as was mentioned earlier, some nice, beautiful homes in every city, and then also seeing the poverty in every city.
Yeah. And starting to see middle-class neighborhoods
Right.
that looked very much like middle-class neighborhoods. Even you could see the socioeconomic strata as we drove through these towns.
And one benefit, there were 5 of us, so driving together created that sense of safety, that there was enough of us to do that. I don't know if we'd have done
Enough
it
of
with
us to
just 2.
remember, okay, you're taking a right turn.
Yes.
We can all chime in to remind you where to stay.
Where to go.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And people always say, you know, have you ever traveled with this group before? And if you do, you're going to come back as not so good of friends. Well, I don't think that happened with us. We all had
No.
a great trip. We had no problems, so I would definitely encourage another couple to go with you if you can.
That'd be
Yeah.
good, another group. So we went to Kruger National Park and arrived there pretty early. I think we were there at 5:30, or we were picked up, we were early.
It was dark.
It was really dark when we got there, as soon as it opened. And so we're gonna show you some of the pictures from that. And, you know, the giraffe on the left, but the lion was pretty awesome. He was
Right
like
on the side of the
from me to Jennifer, of where we were close to this aging lion.
And again, we're in a Jeep just driving
Right.
by, and we're just another animal. So we're not something he's going to try to kill and eat. So we're just like an
No.
elephant going by.
He didn't have much longer to live. He was
Yeah,
an
they knew he
older
was older.
guy. And the elephants, awesome to see them play and how much they destroy a lot of the trees there. But we had all different ages of elephants, and it's interesting to watch the little ones play and jump around going across the streets and doing that.
People, oh, go ahead.
And in Kruger, and really every single park that we went to or preserve that went to, we were just fortunate enough to see a lot of elephants.
Yeah.
And they are just so friendly. And you want to tell them about the an elephant, which we found out at one of the preserves. They protect each other and they protect their
Oh,
family.
see, we come.
And what we did not realize is at this one area where we're at, there's these individuals that are with the elephants 24/7. And when I say with the elephants 24/7, unfortunately poaching is a problem. And matter of fact, they asked us to take off our GPS on all of our photos so that they wouldn't know
Right.
if we saw a rhinoceros or
Because
whatever
people
animals we
post
said.
pictures on Facebook, and by posting the picture on Facebook, it would have the GPS coordinates, and poachers use those to go find where rhinos and others were, so we all had to turn our GPS off of our phones.
But these elephants, and again, this, I love the animals. They had these individuals that were with them 24/7, and they were talking about how one guy who was with them 24/7, he left, and the elephant became very upset because that person had left. It was like his family member had left, and the elephant would go into their house that they stayed at and was putting his head through the kitchen window trying to find this guy. I mean,
For months.
It's really
Yeah.
amazing.
And they mourn just like we do as humans, and so it's,
And they played. This little guy
Yeah.
here was
Oh, yeah.
was a guy who was.
they just play.
And we were that close. Everyone says, do you get close to the animals? You
Yeah.
get close to the animals. It's amazing.
So, and then the hippos, most dangerous animal there.
They kill over 300 human beings a year in that country. So sharks,
Yeah.
no big deal.
Yeah.
Watch out for them.
Watch out for the hippos. And during the time we were there were a lot of babies, which was
Oh,
fun.
that was fun.
So now we're leaving Kruger and we're going to Zulu Nyala, and this is where we stayed. So when we
This is
talked
the trip we won.
This is the trip
To
that we
Zulu
won
Nyala.
of where we're going. So it's just some pictures. They did a lot of logging there.
Yeah, it was, and it looked, I felt like I was in Washington State for parts of the drive with all the trees and the logging industry.
They harvest them, and it's like it's farms. I mean, you just, they're planted every X amount of feet, and as you're driving through this countryside, you're just seeing rows and
It's
rows
not what
and
we
rows and
expected when we
trees.
went to,
No.
we kept saying, this is not what I pictured.
And the picture on the right, showing all the men in the back of the car, back of the truck, you would see that type of travel on a regular basis. I mean, there'd be trucks that are just full of guys standing there, and they're being transported to wherever
Right.
wherever they're going.
For work.
So I thought that was kind of, in
And-
California, you can't even think about it.
Right. And speaking of transport, I had read the book that you all read by Trevor Noah beforehand. I'd read it a few weeks before the campus decided to select it. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, but I couldn't picture totally, was that network of vans.
The vans.
That locals used. And when we were there, I started pointing out, because I was the only one when we got there, I think, who had read the book. And there were all these, they sort of looked like Dodge minivans. They might have been Dodge or Toyota minivans. And they were, in Johannesburg, they were all white with this little sort of funky 80s looking purple and turquoise swirl on the sides of the vans. And we started seeing multiples of those. They didn't have numbers, just like the book says. It's not like it's terribly organized. You're not going to pick up your van schedule, but they were everywhere. And clearly, when you looked at who the passengers were, we were not going to be the passengers. They were definitely there, exactly as Trevor Noah described, traveling throughout the area. And then we noticed in the other large cities that we went to, Durban and then Cape Town, same network of vans, just slightly different color or look to the vans. But I wouldn't have known what those were. I just would have thought, wow, these people really like these white vans. But knowing what it was after having the context from the book was really fun to see that reality in person.
It's still very much what they use.
Yes.
Besides walking.
Right.
A lot of people walk. It was either the walk or the vans.
Right.
And it shows you a little bit about some of the cities there.
And when we say walking, you would be in the middle of nowhere, and people would be walking
In the middle of the road.
in the middle of the road.
And miles.
Right.
And so, and this is their highway. So we're flying by on the
Then what
highway
would
and they're
happen
walking right.
is as you're walking, or as you're driving, you see these people walking, all of a sudden they would just be going into the fields. And so their homes were somewhere back in the, a mile or so back outside of the site where you never even saw their home. They just found a little trail, or they knew where a little trail was, and they would just start walking to their homes.
And the kids would all walk to schools, miles
Miles, yeah.
and hours to get there to be educated. Just more of it. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's nothing there. they're just walking and walking to get to wherever their destination is. Yep. Just more of the housing that we went through. This next one sort of represents a little bit of the Zulu culture, and the red, the house
round
with
structure with the-
round
yeah.
structure is served many different purposes. As a sort of a area to come worship, to do the medicine woman would be in there, and tribal organization took place in there. Then they would build homes on the outside for wife 1, wife 2, wife
Right.
3, depending how many wives that the chief took. Yeah, you.
And even in those middle-class neighborhoods that we were talking about, or wherever you went, there would be a more modern-looking rectangular home.
Right.
And then many, if not most, had a round structure like that one with that pitched roof, because culturally it was something that was significant to have. So that was interesting to see.
So here we're actually at Zulu. So where we stayed, they had Zulu tribe there that would show and just recreate what life was like for Zulu. But there are people that still live to that
Yes.
that fact. And the chief is on the left-hand side, and then this was inside on the right, the round gathering area,
It was a cultural center
cultural center.
where you would, if you wish to use that as an excursion, you would have that opportunity to go really learn about the Zulu culture. And they did an excellent job of explaining the whole process of the Zulu culture. So that's, it's one of those that was really right on the property that we were staying on, because it used to be a Zulu property. And so I encourage people to go to any kind of a cultural center to get a true understanding of the cultures. And when you read, as you know, the book, Trevor Noah's book, it talked about the different tribes. And this right here was just one of the tribes. This was a Zulu tribe. So when he talked about going to this particular area, going to that particular area for that particular tribe, that they all had a different dialect, all had a different language, and how it would be for an individual, it would be like going to a different country, and all in one, because they all had their own languages. And so it was kind of interesting. So this was the Zulu area that we were staying at.
In each tribe, the mother plays a really important role. So you have the chief, and the mom always lived in their village. Okay, so she's to the left of him in the picture on the right. And on the left, this particular chief, I think, had 3 sons that were there, and they showed you the dress that they would wear. And I think he has a sword or spear that he would use, and then they showed us the different things that they would use to fight with and that. And then the woman on the right is
One of his daughters.
one of his daughters, and you can see
So
the
she
beadwork.
was one that was engaged already.
Yes.
Because he'd already received 6 of the 11 heads of cattle. But
Yes.
she's engaged, not married, because until the 11 heads of cattle have been exchanged, it's just an engagement.
Right. Clothing change depended on whether or not you were married, engaged, or not connected in any way. So there was less clothing for those who were not engaged, should we say.
We'll leave it at that.
We'll
yeah.
leave it at that. They like dance and drums, and Jennifer got the opportunity to participate with the chief in one of the dances that they
I think
did
that was
there.
wasn't that the husband and wife dance? I thought that's what it was.
Throughout the whole trip, because the chief came out and grabbed me out of the audience whenever there was a dispute, I just reminded them, the chief picked me.
So she would be wife 1.
Yes.
And then we gave Silva, who was with us, wife 2.
Yes.
So, and then just
My
us
husband was
with
fine
the
with
chief.
that.
He was fine with it. It worked to his benefit.
I still call her second wife, though it makes people wonder when we're at work.
Yeah, that's so funny. So now we're going to sort of take you through our safari and the animals that we saw there in that part of the country. And you see the Jeep is open. That's exactly how we were. The important part of being on a Jeep, though, is to be part of the Jeep. And so you would
Right.
never stand up, you would never reach outside because you changed the dimension of the Jeep, which changed your safety. So,
And we got the signal that we have about 14 minutes left,
oh,
so,
okay, so we'll go
which is fine,
through.
but if we want to have time for
Yeah.
Q&A.
Okay, so we'll go. So this faced off or not, on the left is a black rhino and a white rhino. Very unusual to see them together.
Our guide was blown away that we saw all of a sudden these
Yeah.
two together.
So they were following a female rhino and her baby, and she didn't want anything to do with them. So they were sort of having their own little face-off. And then just the giraffes, which were beautiful, and you could see the one here next to the, I think that's the fever tree, and then the giraffe, and
The foliage was just beautiful.
gorgeous.
Just beautiful.
So the cheetah on the left, there were cheetahs at the preserve next to us, and so there was a fence that went along there, so you would see the cheetahs would go there to meet and follow through.
Right.
And then
Water, or no,
the wildebeest, aren't they?
no, but, yeah,
Oh.
no, those are buffalo, aren't they?
African buffalo?
Yeah. mhm.
What was interesting is this particular cheetah, our guide was really good because
Yeah.
when we saw the cheetah, he goes, the cheetah's on a hunt. He's
We-
hunting for food.
Right.
And so we watched it, we kind of followed as much as we could, and we had the opportunity to see it go to the water hole and really to see it get up on a berm and really just start looking for animals. And then we had to leave, and we went to lunch when we were done, and the group behind us came and said, hey, look, let's show you this video. And they showed us the video of it with its kill. And the kill was still, I hate to say it, still was alive. And they had just come upon it as it had its meal.
An
And we
impala.
Yeah, an impala. And we saw it the next day, the same one, and it was
Huge
just like
belly.
Yeah.
huge belly, not wanting, just kind of
Just laying there.
Just-
No need to hunt. They would hunt and eat every 5 days or so.
And when they're not hunting, they are just so docile.
Cat naps.
Yep.
So
Warthog.
warthog.
Looks just like Pumbaa. They
Yep.
even move just like Pumbaa.
The elephant on the right came from an elephant preserve that Vance was talking about, where there were two men that would walk the land with them. That was their job. The individuals were never in fear of their life because the elephants would protect them against the lions. This became part of their family. But the preserve was awesome because we got to actually go up, pet the elephants, feed them, and be really up close. It was awesome. So the zebra was known for its smile from the back end because you could see the stripes
Right.
and that. We went to a different preserve where the lions were and got to see a couple of the female lions.
After they had hunted, so they were
Yeah,
just kind of
so they were
Unfortunately,
full.
they had hid
Oop.
the cubs from us. Oh, the
so
rhinos.
the rhinos, it's really important when you're out looking at animals to be patient because they blend in a lot with the topography there. And we waited probably 10 minutes seeing this rhino that was just sitting there and not moving. And our guide was awesome and said, okay, let's just wait a little bit. And all of a sudden, the rhino got up and here comes the baby behind it that was just maybe
2 weeks
2
old.
weeks old.
Yeah.
So whoever the guide is that finds it, they get to usually name the baby. So
We said it should be named Raider.
we said it
For
should
Moore
be
Park
named Raider
Raiders.
after Moore Park. And he
We've
bu-
decided that's what they did.
and so we
No confirmation, but
No,
we believe
but we-
that's Raider.
So when you go back, see if it's called Raider.
yeah, where's Raider?
Yep.
So
There's the wildebeest.
the wildebeest. And so we talked about poachers, and they had these lookout towers built for there. We had a surprise African spirits. One night we were out on a safari, didn't know this was going to happen, and they just came out and pulled out this whole
Out
thing.
of the Jeep somewhere, they've got a
Yeah.
table.
What's interesting about this one right here, because we got out of the vehicle, which again, you're not supposed to do, obviously, but in this case, they had a weapon on the hood of the vehicle. And we said, what's that for? And, obviously it was for protection.
Yeah.
So, they were prepared for whatever could take place, but obviously they haven't, and this group never used it, but it was just interesting how we were out and having
We were oblivious
One
to the
drink.
fact that it could be
We had
dangerous.
only one
African
drink.
spirit.
Just one.
We got a chance to go to the Indian Ocean. In the picture on the left, you see the little monkey at the bottom. They were all over
Everywhere. So
They'd
this is
steer
St.
your-
Lucia.
the place. Yeah, and they just
Hippos everywhere.
steal your food, go right up. It
We
was
did some wild snorkeling there.
right. We did snorkeling here, which was beautiful. This is
We have about
our
9 minutes.
Okay, we're down in Cape Town. So this is Table Mountain, and we had the opportunity to hike up that and take the cable car down. You can take the cable car up.
beautiful view.
Amazing.
Right. And then on the right, this drum band was just a couple of people who worked at this place, but then brought in all different people who were walking by to do this, and they were beautiful. One thing I want to talk about Cape Town in relationship to the book, and Trevor Noah talks about the heists that they would pull and things they would do to trick people. Well, this is where it happened to us. And there were...
Not me. I was in the room working.
was a young man who appeared very disheveled and poor, and blanket around him, and he came up and he wanted someone to buy him food, and Silva, who was with us, a bleeding heart, sure, okay, so we'll find a store. And we had found one to go across the street, and he goes, no, 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 I know of a better one down
That's
a
your
ways.
first red flag.
You don't want to do that. Took us in, picked things that would seem appropriate for a family. The clerk checks it out, she paid, and so what happens after that, we found out, is that the individual who we bought the items for leaves, comes back, gives it back to the store owner, and gives him half of the profits. And we were followed into the store by another woman who was asking for food for her baby, and she had the baby with her, and of course we fell into that one and did the exact same thing. But it's the scam that he talks about in his book still continues, and becoming a victim of that. But it was okay. Okay, there's some of the food. Indian food was
yeah,
What
a
we
large
didn't
part.
realize is that South Africa has the largest Indian population outside of India. And fantastic Indian food.
Yeah.
Fantastic Indian
Yeah.
food.
And then there were these homes down in Cape Town area, that vicinity, that were all painted all different colors, and it's beautiful. This picture is really to show you the differences between styles of living in Cape Town. A lot of trash, dirty. If you could imagine going down the 405 and having homes that are made of tin or cinder in just one room, and then adding on, and we're talking thousands of people living there, and outhouses lining that. That's what one part of Cape Town looked like. And on the other side is the harbor, the area of a lot of wealth. So you could see how that still continues to go there. Do you want to talk about Robben Island?
Yeah, then we had the opportunity to go to Robbins Island, which is where Mandela was held for, was it 27 years?
27 years.
Something like that. And the person who showed us around, and I'm forgetting his name, but is pictured there, he was actually a prisoner at the same time as Mandela, knew Mandela. He also described his experience, including being tortured for several months there, and living there, and really learning from Mandela about, if we ever get out of here, the way that we need to approach things is with peace and with love. And so we had this person who experienced many, many years, I think he was imprisoned for 15 of those years, who was now our guide, and so uplifting. You would think after the story I told that it would be a very somber approach to the tour, but he was very smiley and positive and hopeful, wanting us to understand the history so that we can learn never to repeat it, to understand the insidiousness that went behind creating what happened, and also what they try to do in that country not to let that happen again.
Right. I think one of the things, because from Robben Island you could see Cape Town, so these prisoners
Yeah.
were always had plain view of
What
of
it could be.
what could be and where they came from. And, that could cause despair, but for them, it was hope. And that's one thing that kept them going and probably changed a lot of how Mandela thought about as he could look out his window and look and see.
So we have 5 minutes. We should open it up to questions, maybe?
And we'll just go through pictures and
Yeah, you heard about the sharks. There we are with the sharks in the pictures. Anyone have any questions? If not, as you can see, we can keep talking.
Well, something I will kind of mention, and we sit back and think about the Trevor Noah's book. We did a lot of Ubering when we got into the cities. And so one of the questions that we would always ask the Uber driver, because whenever they're taking, you just try to develop a little conversation. We'd always ask them, where are you from? Where are you from? Thinking that they're from South Africa. Every single one of our Uber drivers were from another country. And we asked them, why are you here in South Africa? And the answer was always the same: for a better life. And I never realized it. We just I never thought about it before. But the same situation that South Africa has with other individuals coming into their state for a better life is the same situation that we're in today.
Right.
We have people that are trying to get into the United States for a better life. And
working hard to do
and
so
working
as they
hard
were.
to do, having jobs. And it was just kind of interesting how some of the same political issues that we're facing from immigration is what these other countries are facing as well. And so it was just kind of interesting. And we thought, God, these are probably all South African drivers. We never had a South African driver. Never had a South African driver.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
I will ask a question.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
First of all, I love the hustling.
Oop, you've got a microphone.
I love the story of, this feels weird. I love the story of you guys being hustled. That was great, great memory. But I have a question. It's a little, what's the word? Gauche, I think is the word. But I would love, it's kind of a bucket list trip for me. I'd love one day to go on a safari to see kind of the animal preserves. And I'm genuinely curious, how long do people go for? How many people are at one of these preserves? And how ballpark, how much is it?
Well,
I
think
wouldn't go less than 2 weeks. And part of it is it's going to take a
travel.
couple days to travel. If you add the plane flight up, it's about 24 hours, depending on how you go. And from Los Angeles, you're going to stop somewhere. And both ways, we went through Amsterdam. So we had 11 or 12-hour flights each way. And on the way back, we created a midway stop. But when we were gone for 3 weeks and in South Africa for a little over 2. And yes, when we went to these preserves, lots of tourists, mostly Europeans, some Americans were there.
Like hundreds of tourists?
Oh, no.
Oh.
There's each particular, there's a lot of different preserves.
Yeah,
So
a
the
lot of
one
them.
that we were at, it maybe had, I'm going to say, maybe had 100 people there,
Right.
maybe. But there's other preserves throughout that,
And you were
that area.
assigned a group, so we were groups of 9 that were sort of like a family together. And we spent that time going out on, we had two excursions in the wildlife preserve that we were at a day. So it didn't feel even like there were 100 people there. We were
Right.
a smaller group, but safely with larger group of people.
Now, Jeremy, for me, I could still be there right now going on looking
Yeah.
for animals.
more animals.
I mean, they got
And
tired.
he was
they
the
got-
best. You
they
want to
got
take
tired of
Vance
me.
with you if
You
you
do.
go.
He's a great
He will
spotter.
see anything. Even the guides were surprised.
Do they have expats who fall in love with it and move there and
Yes,
become the
many.
tour guides?
Yes.
Yeah.
Many. They're giving me the signal that we have 30 seconds left.
Any other questions?
We don't have any time for any other questions. I'm getting the signal.
Yeah.
We're done.
If you have
We're
a chance,
done.
go.
Thank you so much. I
Awesome.
definitely recommend it. Great.
Jeremy.